We've reached day 6 of the Artemis 2 mission, the grand lunar flyby. The Orion capsule, named Integrity by the crew themselves, crosses the far side of the moon, pushing humanity's presence in space beyond any previously planned limit. Today, you'll witness the total radio blackout behind the moon, humanity's absolute distance record in space, the Earthrise, and a rare event nobody expected: lunar meteoroid impacts live. Don't forget to subscribe to the Top 10 channel and let's go. The routine on the 6th day of the mission began very differently. On previous mornings, the astronauts woke up focused on checking mechanical equipment and testing life support systems. Today, around 30,000 kilometers from the lunar surface, the entire cabin configuration changed. The mission shifted from that operational flight mode to a purely scientific phase. To guide this intense work, engineers activated the Lunar Targeting Plan, a geological mapping software designed exclusively for this approach window. The same window the crew had been rehearsing since day 3, when Jeremy Hansen and Christina Koch calibrated the cameras and practiced identifying targets using augmented reality on the tablets. Now it was time to execute what had been prepared since the first days of the mission, with the exact list of 35 rock targets displayed on screen. Ry Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen faced 7 hours of continuous observation, with the crew rotating in pairs to cover as much lunar surface as possible. This massive workload shows how the space program's focus has shifted. The objective now is to act as orbital geologists, mapping rugged terrain with their own eyes to ensure the safety of future landing missions. Something no robotic probe can achieve with the same precision. Before the observation window began, the crew received a message that stopped the cabin. It was a recording by Jim Lovell, an astronaut from Apollo 8 and Apollo 13, who passed away in 2025 at 97 years old. In the recording, Lovell welcomed the crew to his old neighborhood, spoke about the legacy of Apollo 8, and expressed pride in passing the torch to them. At exactly 1:56 p.m. Eastern Time, Artemis 2 crossed 400,171 kilometers from Earth. As noted on day 3 of this series, this was the distance Apollo 13 reached in 1970 after an explosion forced an emergency curve around the moon. That record was born out of desperation. This one was not. At Mission Control in Houston, the confirmation was met with applause. No mechanical failure, no improvisation, and most importantly, this was not yet the final number. The trajectory is figure-8 shaped. That maneuver we explained in the first episode of this series was only in the middle of its open curve. In the following hours, Orion would push this limit even farther, toward a mark never before recorded in human space exploration. Soon after this milestone, the visual dynamics through the capsule window began to change dramatically. This prepared the 4 astronauts psychologically for the most critical phase of the day. Until then, no matter how far they traveled, Earth had always been visible as a safe harbor, blue and floating in darkness. However, Artemis 2's orbit, as previously shown, isn't a circle around our planet. It's a close approach trajectory around the moon. As the capsule neared its destination, the moon's massive presence began to fill almost the entire field of view. Slowly, the trajectory dragged Orion to the moon's far side. At that moment, the astronauts experienced a stunning, intimidating visual phenomenon known as Earthset or Earth setting. The geometry of this orbital encounter is precise and relentless. From the capsule's perspective, Earth doesn't vanish on the horizon because the planet is rotating. It disappears because the spacecraft itself is plunging behind the moon's rocky curvature. Watching their entire home planet slide and disappear behind a wall of rock has a massive psychological impact. This was visual confirmation that their connection to their home planet had been severed. They could no longer see Earth. And this visual blackout was only the warning that in a few seconds, voices, radio signals, and data would also vanish. At 6:44 p.m., that nearly visual-only blockage became total physical isolation. Orion crossed the radio frontier and entered the feared loss of signal, lowest zone. Once swallowed by the far side shadow, screens at Houston froze. No telemetry, oxygen readings, heart rate, or video. For roughly 40 minutes, the spacecraft and its crew were completely cut off from any help. In this silent void, the onboard flight computers assumed 100% control of vital operations. Any life support failure, unwanted course deviation, or sudden depressurization had to be resolved exclusively by the 4 astronauts aboard. This is the mission's most technically and humanly vulnerable window and the ultimate test of the capsule's autonomy. The silence at Houston confirmed that at that exact moment they were entirely dependent on the precision of the machines and the vastness of space. It was precisely during this radio blackout, completely blind to Earth, that the capsule's autonomous systems recorded the 2 most extreme numbers of the interplanetary journey. At 7:02 p.m., the spacecraft executed the lowest point of its flyby, passing just 6,549 kilometers above the far side's cratered surface. This distance is akin to a plane flying across the Americas, only in vacuum and far above lunar ranges, never hit by direct sunlight. Just 5 minutes later, at 7:07 p.m., the gravitational curve completed its widest arc. At that exact second, the crew achieved the definitive, impressive record of 406,771 kilometers from Earth, the absolute human space distance record. This was the deepest point in the orbit. In figure 8 shape, the colossal inertia of the maneuver reversed the gravitational tug. Orion reached its maximum separation and began being violently flung back toward Earth. Achieving these precise coordinates in darkness proved beyond doubt that the main engine, navigation tools, and complex orbital calculations functioned perfectly within the expected margin. While instruments recorded these historic numbers, the 4 astronauts were not just watching darkness pass by the window. During these 40 minutes, they executed what had been prepared since day one. Unable to transmit real-time images, they documented the scene on camera and dictated geological reports directly into onboard recorders. Key targets included the east edge of the South Pole Aitken Basin, Haiten, one of the largest and oldest impact structures in the solar system, exposing the moon's internal layers. The Vavilov crater on the edge of the larger Hertzsprung Basin, and the Orientale Basin, about 960 kilometers in diameter, straddling the visible and far sides. Human eyes reported true color, depth, and texture differences that automatic cameras distort under extreme lighting. During this silent flyby, one of the most human moments occurred. The crew spotted 2 unnamed craters and suggested provisional names. The first, Integrity, like their capsule; the second, Carol, honoring Commander Ray Wiseman's late wife. On a mission rewriting history, they chose which names would be forever etched on the lunar surface. The accumulated tension at mission control only eased when the first vital signs reappeared. The long forced silence ended. At 7:25 p.m., Orion completed the curve around the moon and re-established contact with ground antennas. The telemetry's instant green lights proved all systems endured the blind spot without reboot or data loss. As windows realigned with the new trajectory, the crew had the privilege of witnessing the iconic Earthrise, the Earth emerging from the far side's shadow, a fragile sphere of water and clouds over barren lunar terrain. This exact photographic angle helped shape environmental awareness in the 1960s during Apollo 8, Jim Lovell's mission, whose morning message had inspired the crew. Today, the laser communication system O2O, tested on day 3, transmitted high-definition videos, geological reports, and photos to Houston in seconds. Relief at restored communication mingled with the impact of seeing humanity's last home through the spacecraft glass. Orbital physics still had one more spectacle for day 6. The precise return window aligned Orion, the moon, and the sun. Tens of thousands of kilometers above the lunar crust, the crew witnessed the moon completely blocking the sun, a space eclipse, this time moon blocking light. Unlike day 3's Earth eclipse, this didn't create a power crisis but a unique scientific window. For 57 minutes, the spacecraft traveled within the moon's cold shadow. Without Earth's atmosphere to scatter light, darkness was absolute, while the sun's hidden edge revealed the corona in unparalleled clarity. Victor Glover described seeing the sun disappear behind the moon, the corona forming a halo, and the moon a black sphere suspended with stars and planets visible behind it. The corona, the sun's outer atmosphere, contains superheated plasma above 1 million degrees C, contorting under violent magnetic fields. The crew focused lenses on this extreme region, capturing dynamic details rarely visible to Earth telescopes. In this nearly 1-hour interval, the capsule functioned as a privileged astronomical observatory. Unexpectedly, the moon's surface beneath Orion plunged into absolute darkness. NASA instructed the crew to watch for impact flashes, and indeed, they observed bright, sharp flashes, meteoroids striking the lunar surface. Without an atmosphere, the moon offers no thermal shielding, so even small rocks hit with full kinetic energy, creating sudden detonations visible from space. This confirmed the engineering challenge. Establishing lunar habitats and walking astronauts will require robust physical defenses. Data from Orion and Earth-based telescopes will refine impact risk models for future bases. After enduring radio isolation, documenting the eclipse and recording meteoroid bombardments, the crew completed the exhausting Day 6 research schedule. NASA then activated a live high-quality video link to the U.S. President and agency headquarters. The 4 astronauts floated in front of the camera, relieved and smiling, in a historic broadcast. Commander Wiseman spoke about seeing familiar Earth locations from a new perspective. Christina Koch said she wasn't ready to go home. Showing healthy, lucid crew members far beyond Apollo-era limits was Artemis's clearest message. The institutional celebration was brief. As the camera lights went out, the operational checklists returned. Lunar exploration mode ended. Orion now began its inertial journey back toward Earth, accelerating every minute. The next day, The mission's focus will be achieving a precise braking angle over a narrow corridor above the Pacific near San Diego. Any deviation risks atmospheric skip or destruction on re-entry. The deep space spectacle was over. The race against friction had begun. Day 6 rewrote humanity's presence limits in space and proved autonomous engineering can sustain life where no voice can reach. Orion turned its back on the moon. The mission is now to return home at the correct angle. What impressed you most today? The distance record, the radio silence behind the moon, the names etched on lunar surface, or the meteoroid flashes? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're following this series, subscribe, like, and hit the bell. You won't want to miss what's next. Big hugs. See you in the next video. And a word for those not subscribed yet. What are you waiting for?